What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Danny and Bush coming at you with episode 19 of Dynasty Decisions. We are going strong with this series. You guys seem to like it, so we're going to keep doing it. We are getting into peak redraft season coming up very soon, so we don't know how much longer we're going to keep doing it, but we will, oblige the people if you guys want us to keep running these. So as always, if you guys want to be a part of Dynasty Decisions, all you have to do, follow us on Twitter. They're both on the screen and linked in the description. You can DM us on Twitter, your questions, your rookie pick questions, trade questions, am I contender, rebuilder, whatever the case is, you can DM us there on Twitter, or you can do it on Discord by joining our free Discord in the description and DMing us that way. Danny, how are you doing today?
Doing well. And yeah, you guys freaking love this series. I said that last episode. I'm going to say it again. That's why we're back to back, baby. You keep filing in these questions. We keep getting about 20 to 25 per week. Guess what? We can't fit 20 to 25 on one episode. That's why you guys have been getting that double dosage for the last few weeks. But yeah, excited, ready to answer your guys' questions and help you make those key moves in winning your Dynasty Fantasy Football Championships. But before we do that, as always, can hit the intro. Okay, so let's start off with the first team in the video, and that's going to be from Joshchacho. And you guys can see it on the screen, but it's a 12-team PPR best ball, super flex with a 0.5 tight end premium. So you could take it away with the team, Corey.
Yeah, and you guys can see, and Best Ball Dynasty is not something I've ever played in.
Interesting.
Personally. It sounds like an interesting concept, but with Brady, Stafford, Trevor Lawrence, and Trey Lance, I think he's going to be okay at quarterback. He's got Akers, unfortunately, Swift, Javonte Williams, ETN, Damian Harris at running back. That'll do even without Akers. It's still a pretty solid core. Keenan Allen, Robert Woods, DJ Chark, Michael Pittman, Mark Andrews at tight end, Gronk as well. Looks like he has both of his first in the next 2 years. Doesn't have a second in 2022, but he does have 2/3, and he has 2/3 in 2023 as well. And he wants basically our thoughts on the team in general, but he made a couple trades that you guys will also be able to see on the screen right now. And we'll go over the first trade. So he sent away the 101, which ended up being Kyle Pitts. And remember, it is a tight end premium, so that does make sense why Kyle Pitts would go number one. A 2022 second, Anthony Miller and Jamal Williams, and in return, he received Jamar Chase, Robert Woods, and Leonard Fournette. So what are your thoughts overall on that first trade?
Honestly, from his situation, Pitts is extremely valuable in this format, but at the same time, you do have Andrews, and hey, I'm still going to get Najee or Jamar Chase at that 103 spot. So I'm moving down from Pitts and basically just getting a free Robert Woods. I don't mind this deal.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing that at the 101, it wasn't a quarterback, because in Superflex, both of our 101s is Trey Lance. Both of our 102s is a quarterback as well, and Trevor Lawrence. And in a tight end premium, I can understand taking Pitts at the 101, but I would still probably take Trey Lance over Pitts in a tight end premium, so or in a Superflex. So I think the interesting thing is that you were able to get Jamar Chase at 3, and you'll see in a second that he ended up getting a quarterback later in the first round. So maybe his league is newer to Superflex. They're not really sure what the value of quarterbacks is. And again, that's an important thing to realize. And he obviously did realize that by waiting at quarterback and getting our 101 at 109 in a Superflex format. So good job on you there. Overall, though, I think getting Chase versus Pitts, 101, 103, they're in the same tier for me. So the fact that you picked up, to me, the second and third best assets in the deal in Woods and Fournette, I think that's a good deal for you.
Yep, I absolutely agree there. So he actually didn't have Jamar Chase on his team for too long, because in the next deal, just ends up shipping up Jamar Chase, a second-round pick, and what's basically fodder in a crappy Tevin Coleman. And in return, ended up with the 106, Damian Harris, and DJ Chark. And I'll just say it right now, downgrading, quote-unquote, from Chase to ETN while still picking up easily the second and third best assets in the deal, like slam dunk.
Yeah, and to me, I view ETN in the same tier as Chase. I know you view it as a tier break. You think those top three guys are in their own tier, but it's still Travis Etienne, especially in a best ball format too, with the way that we're going to be looking at Travis Etienne this year specifically. I do think Etienne has a little bit more appeal in that kind of format, and I think at running back, the fact that you're able to downgrade, quote unquote, from a star wide receiver to a very talented young running back and pick up Damian Harris, who's a solid running back in his own right, and DJ Chark, when you also, have Trevor Lawrence as well, is pretty good to have. And then when we look at the last deal that he had, He did Derek Carr and Darren Waller, so the Raider stack essentially, for the 109, which again became Trey Lance somehow in a Superflex format, the 2022 second round pick, and Mark Andrews in a tight end premium. So I think you absolutely smash this trade. Again, as much as Darren Waller has tremendous value in a tight end premium format, I would say the 109 in Mark Andrews is more than enough for me to give up Darren Waller. I would say pretty easily, and I think you can comfortably win that trade. And Derek Carr probably worth a little bit more than a second round pick, but I think you're kind of getting the counterbalance of the first trade to the second trade. So either way, I really like what you ended up with there. And especially when you look at his quarterback core, right? Like he obviously had two very, older quarterbacks with Stafford and Brady. So the fact that he was able to inject two, R101 and 102 in this rookie class to his quarterback core, and also pick up Javonte Williams and Travis Etienne somehow is, phenomenal for what you did in your rookie draft this year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about the fact that that trade just off numeric value would be good for you. Like if you just knew, okay, it was the 109, it was the second, and it was Andrews. But the fact that you can attach Trey Lance to that deal, the best asset in the deal, just an absolute slam dunk move for you. Now, if you're looking at this team, you got Brady, Stafford, T-Law, Lance, absolutely phenomenal quarterback core. Running backs, obviously, with Akers getting hurt, that takes a huge hit, but you still got Swift, Javonte, Etienne, Harris. You got very good depth at that spot, plus Henderson for that cup with Akers, thankfully. Wide receiver, stock there, and tight end Andrews. This is absolutely a team that can compete this year. And in best ball formats, I mean, you have guys that can legitimately put up huge ceiling weeks. So overall, I do think that this is a team that can contend right away, and this is a team that should be in the race to ultimately win it all, especially, again, pure ceiling week-to-week options. Like once T-Law and Lance hit their stride as rookies, like we could
Same
be
with
talking
the running
about,
backs too. Once Williams
absolutely,
and Etienne start to hit their strides, because I think early in the season you can get by with a combination of Swift, Harris, Fournette, and Henderson, and then the rookies, whatever they can contribute early in a best ball format. You should be okay from that front. And then by the time the season's coming to an end, Javonte Williams should be a full-time starter by that point. Travis Etienne hopefully is a full-time starter by that point. So you're able to shoulder that, the loss of Cam Akers a little bit easier that way. I think even without Cam Akers, this should be one of the best teams in the league, and you should be set to contend. So we can move on to the next team, which is
Stefan Deluca. And basically, he's got his team on the screen. You guys can see it. It's a 16-team PPR league. It also has a defense as well. You guys can see that. After 2021, it has 12 keepers. Who would you keep and who should he trade? So you guys can see that team above: Mahomes, Burrow, Gibson, Mixon, Cook, and some others. Thomas, Ayuk, Adams, Judy, and some others, and then Troutman. So there's 15 total guys he listed. So mathematically here, like there's only 3 guys you're not keeping. And judging off that list right away, the 2 guys for sure you're not keeping are Ty Johnson and Salvon Ahmed. Who would be the next guy if you had to cut one out of this list? Crowder? Okay, so those would be the 3 guys that you wouldn't keep. You keep the rest. And his last trade, he ended up saying actually at the bottom, I'm not too sure about Akers. I think he is overhyped. Henderson has the same stats.
Well, unfortunately, we're never going to find out the answer to that question. So in this trade that he says he would be getting the 103, a 2022 second, and he'd be giving
up Akers and a fifth. So I would have disagreed with the trade or with the take vehemently before the injury, but the fact that you're able to get the 103 for a guy that now has an Achilles tear, like it worked out very well for you. So
yeah, overall, you definitely dodged a bullet with that one, because had you asked us this last week, we would have said that you screwed the pooch on that trade. But obviously with Akers' situation now, you're obviously in a better situation. He also talks about, I guess his rookie draft hasn't happened yet. He said he has the 103, the 104, and the 106, and he wants to upgrade. He wants to upgrade pick trade from 112 to 107. What should he give to jump up from the 112 to the 107? He said he's interested in Ayuk and Judy, but he says he really likes the upside of both of those guys this season. I agree with him.
Agree. Yeah. Like maybe if that person wants to do like Hardman, but aside from that, like I'm keeping the rest of my team.
Yeah, it's tough for you to get up to that that pick number. If that 112 to 107 jump, and he says Devontae Smith or Kyle Pitts could be there at 107, I would make the trade using Judy if Kyle Pitts is there personally, because I think Kyle Pitts, given his tight end situation, would upgrade it enough to the point that trade might be worth it. 112 and Jerry Judy for Kyle Pitts. On it, it sounds like a steep price to pay up. Maybe you can get a second rounder or something, a young piece in return, but I think that might be worthy of that kind of trade.
I would absolutely need a piece attached to that. Again, I think
If you get a second back, would you do it?
Where's the second though? Are we talking like the 204?
Something like that, yeah.
I'd probably do it for the 204 and then still get like a Terrace Marshall. But yeah, aside from that, like if you're getting anything lower than that, I'd probably just hold the team. I mean, like Troutman obviously isn't even remotely close to Pitts, but
the other thing I will say is because you have the 106, I would just pick Pitts there.
Yeah, just pick Pitts, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about it. Just pick Pitts there. And who knows? Like, if Devonta Smith falls to you at the 112, hey, you're fucking chilling.
Yeah, exactly. So the 103 and 104, what are your thoughts with those moves? What are you probably leaning towards? It is a one quarterback format, so you're probably not getting a high. So what I'm wondering is how are you going to get Kyle Pitts at 107 in a single quarterback rookie draft? Is my
that's a bit wild too. Like at the 103, 104 spot, I'm absolutely eyeing at least two of Chase, Harris, and Pitts personally. And then obviously you can figure in the running backs in that mix as well. So you should, in theory, get 3 of the top 6 players in this draft if you include the 3 running backs, Pitts, Chase, and yeah. So you're chilling there. We can head on to the next team though, and that's going to be from Mikey B. So you can take it away with this little bit of a blurry screenshot here.
Yeah. Mikey B sends the blurry screenshot. So basically what he wants to know, we've already gone over this team for him, so we're not going to go super in depth with it, but basically he wants to know about Cam Akers, right? And I'm sure anybody who owns Cam Akers in Dynasty wants to know what they should do with Cam Akers. So now with Akers out, and you can see, I guess his lineup takes a pretty decent hit without Akers because he now has JT and J.K. Dobbins as his top 2 running backs, but not a real established RB3. He has Baker, Lance, and Fitzpatrick as his quarterbacks. Keenan Allen, Kenny Golladay, Cortland Sutton, Terrace Marshall, Cole Kmet as his tight end. With Cam Akers on this team, this is a contender, right? And I still think it is probably a contender without Cam Akers. But I think he asked, should I wait till midseason to sell some veterans? I think that's exactly what I would do. Because if you get out to a hot start in this league and Trey Lance is starting right away and he's looking like the next Justin Herbert or something like that, then you should very well be able to compete with this team. But if you get to midseason, Keenan Allen's banged up or J.K. Dobbins banged up and your depth is really suffering now because Akers is out, then I'd probably be looking to sell a guy like Keenan Allen or looking to sell a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick or whatever other Kenny Golladay veteran that you want to sell, because I don't necessarily think this is going to be a rebuilding team anytime soon. I just think that you're lacking depth and you'll probably need to sell a high-end piece to acquire some.
Yep, I absolutely agree. And he also outlined, should I sell Akers or hold and hope for the best? Listen, I'm trusting the data here. If you can get anything of the first round pick or higher value for Akers, I would sell him immediately. Listen, you're not going to find a higher channel on what we were with Akers, but an Achilles tear is nothing to sniff at. And heck, Deontay Foreman had some hype at one point. You remember that guy? Yeah, it didn't work out too well there. So overall, like, he's a 21-year-old running back, and I hate saying this, but if you can get that value, I'd take it. I'd sell on him.
Yeah, any kind of first round value. Like if you can if someone will offer you a first next year straight up for Cam Akers, I would take it. I know that sounds, maybe you think it's an overreaction. Maybe medical science is advanced. I've heard fantasy doctors say something about like a new type of procedure that they're doing. But I mean, aside from the 2 Broncos receivers, Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas, I can't think of any NFL athlete, period, that has come back from an Achilles tear and been really good, let alone a running back. Because for running backs, it is like there's literally never been one that has come back and produced as an RB3, even, let alone RB2, RB1, like we wanted Cam Akers to be. So yeah, if somebody still believes in the RB1 ceiling for Cam Akers, I would sell, because even if he does come back, we're looking probably at a committee next year with Darrell Henderson, and it's just a murky situation all around.
Yep, I absolutely agree. And any other thoughts? I think we kind of covered it, just kind of see what happens. But if you can get value for Akers right now, that's what I do. So we can get on to the next team, and that's going to be from Cole Get Money. So you could take it away with his team.
Yeah, so Cole Get Money's team, it's a super flex league. He doesn't say how many teams are in the league necessarily, but it looks like, I'm just going to assume it's a standard 12-team league.
Yeah.
So it is a super flex. Russell Wilson and Ryan Fitzpatrick is a pretty dicey quarterback core to have in a super flex league because he doesn't list any other quarterbacks. So I'm assuming those are the only starters he has. Nick Chubb, DeAndre Swift, pretty solid there. Calvin Ridley, DJ Chark, Corey Davis, Jalen Waddle, Kadarius Toney, Tyler Higbee, and Logan Thomas at tight ends. He's got his first round pick in 2022. He does not have his second round pick, but he's got 2 3s and 2 4s. 3 firsts in 2023, which is a pretty good situation to be in. And then he's got 3 1s in 2024, but he doesn't have his second in 2024. So he has a number of trades that he wants us to go over. Overall, when I'm looking at this team, this does look like a rebuilding effort to me, though, because I just personally don't think that you can compete with this team. It'd be really hard to do so. I'd be looking to continue to sell some veterans, and you can see in some of the trades that he made, it looks like he is selling some veterans. So we'll go through these trades, one by one, rapid fire. So we'll start with, he sent away Dalvin Cook, Curtis Samuel, and Sammy Watkins, and in return, he received Calvin Ridley, Ronald Jones, Jacoby Myers, a 2023 first, a 2022 second, 2022 third, and the rookie 302 this year. So what are your thoughts on that first trade?
It looks like pretty fair value to me. If you even it out, Rojo and Myers probably equals Samuel and Watkins, give or take. So really what we're looking at here is Ridley, a 2023 first and 2 third-round picks for Dalvin Cook. And I think Dalvin Cook, like for a contender, is an absolute game changer. But at the same time, from your rebuilding position, getting, a good ascending wide receiver and some draft capital, I think is a very smart move for you. Now, I know Corey might disagree with me here, but the first thing I'm doing is, okay, I have Ridley now. Guess what? Ridley's not going to be on my team for too long because I'm going to.
Oh, I actually don't think that's a bad take at all. I think that's probably something I would do as well because Calvin Ridley's a young receiver, but he's like 26, 27 years old. So like he's in his prime. He's not necessarily a guy that's, CeeDee Lamb 22 years old. He's a guy that is going to be 28, 29 by the time that this team is ready to compete. So yeah, as soon as the season starts and we see Calvin Ridley performing like Stefan Diggs last year, I'm selling him.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. And honestly, like if you get to a point in the season and let's say, like for whatever reason, knock on wood, I hope this isn't the case, but CeeDee Lamb gets off to a slow start or Jamar Chase isn't exactly what he is. And you can get like one of those receivers plus a first for Ridley. That's something I would look into. But before we talk about potential deals down the line, let's just go through the rest of them and then we can give our closing thoughts. The next deal, he would be sending Robbie Anderson and Chase Edmonds in return would get a 2023 first, a 2023 third, and Corey Davis. And let's just say it right now, I personally have Davis and Anderson probably similar value in terms of dynasty. So getting not only a 2023 first, but plus for Chase Edmonds, round of applause deal in my opinion.
Yeah, that one doesn't need too much analysis. I think the first is clearly the best asset in that deal.
Yep, easily. So next deal, he would be sending Mike Williams, and in return, he got the 207, which ended up being Kadarius Toney. And it's not bad, but
rebuilding, I don't hate the move at all. For a rebuilding team, I think that's a pretty fair move.
Maybe it's just the name Kadarius Toney at the 207 that kind of puts me off a little bit. Like if it was like a De'Ami Brown or like a Terrace Marshall, I'd probably be a little more excited, but it's probably about a fair value, Joe.
Yeah, and it is still a first-round wide receiver. So if he performs at all this year, he's probably going to have a significant value to people who do believe in Kadarius Toney. We're not one of those people, but I'm sure there's a couple guys in your league that'll see the flashy yards after catch plays during the season. You might be able to sell them for more than the 207 this year.
Yep, I agree. So the next move, he would be sending Mark Andrews and Alex Madison, and in return got Kareem Hunt, Tyler Higbee, and a 2022 first. And right off the bat, I really like this deal. Listen, like Mark Andrews is a really good tight end, but Higbee's got some upside. Kareem Hunt, obviously one of the most well-known handcuffs in fantasy football, and also getting that 2022 first. So I do like the value there.
Yeah, overall, like this deal doesn't really make sense from your team building perspective, but you can always sell these pieces, right? The asset that you're looking for in this deal is the first round pick. So Kareem Hunt, Tyler Higbee, those guys can be sold at a future date. And I'm not sure looking at it right now if you did sell them yet, but those guys are going to have value going forward. The one thing I will say, though, is that I do believe like a lot in Mark Andrews long-term. So parting with him hurts, but the fact that you're probably going to get him more so when he's 26, 27 years old, I mean, it's probably better to just grab the first round pick and move on and see what you can get for Kareem Hunt and Tyler Higbee once the season starts or once people need a running back or a tight end.
Yep, absolutely. The next deal, he would send the 302 in return, get Hayden Hurst and a 2022 third. I would want to know who was on the board at the 302, but regardless, I mean, if it wasn't like a De'Ami Brown, Terrace Marshall type, I don't mind making this type of move. I mean, hey, you take a chance, maybe Hayden Hurst signs somewhere next year on or something. Like, I don't know. Like,
I think I would have kept the 302 here because to me, that 302 is probably like a Nico Collins, Kellen Mond type, maybe.
That's fair. Actually,
at that point, I'd probably just stick with the 302 and pick whoever was on the board. But I don't blame the move. It's not like you picked up an extra third rounder next year, which you can use in future moves to sweeten the pot. Like if you're trying to move Kareem Hunt, for example, and you want to get a first rounder and somebody doesn't want to give you a first rounder for Kareem Hunt, you can be like, here, I'll give you this 2022 third plus Kareem Hunt, and then you get the first rounder. So you can use those mid-round picks to help sweeten other deals, which is what I like doing when I'm rebuilding, is acquire a bunch of second and third round picks because you can use them easily to get up to first round picks.
Yep, I agree there. So yeah, overall, it's probably a decently fair deal. This one though, I'm not the biggest fan of personally. He ends up giving Watson in the 2022 first for Chubb, Juju, and Brashad Perriman. Brashad Perriman, look, I don't give a crap about it. In all honesty, he's probably worth like a fourth at this point. So really, here the main base of this deal is Watson in the first for Juju and Nick Chubb. Now, as a rebuilding position, giving up on Deshaun Watson and the rookie pick, probably the two most longevity pieces of this entire deal, I don't agree with.
I completely agree. I think if you were getting this side of the deal, this would be a smash deal for you. But the fact, like, yeah, you can trade Nick Chubb and Juju Smith-Schuster, but Deshaun Watson to me is at the lowest point he's ever going to be in terms of value. So even if you don't plan on using Deshaun Watson in your rebuild, this time next year, he's going to have first round startup value because whatever his legal situation is going to clear up by then. He's going to be a Carolina Panther, a Philadelphia Eagle, a Denver Bronco by that point too. And you can sell him for first round startup value because we know one thing about Deshaun Watson, that he's one of the most talented 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. And he's like 25 years old. So yep. I wouldn't have sold Deshaun Watson yet. If you were I would have bought Deshaun Watson in your situation.
All right. So the next deal we do see here, he sent away Juju Smith-Schuster, Ronald Jones, and 2 2023 third round picks in exchange for Austin Hooper, Darius Slayton, a 2024 first and 2023 second. And for a rebuilder, I'm fine with going out, trading those win now, quote unquote, pieces with Juju and Ronald Jones and receiving the draft capital in this deal. You both shave points for this year off your team and also acquire future draft capital. So I like the move.
Yeah. Overall, though, I kind of wish he was acquiring a little bit more like rebuilder type move. Like if you're going to acquire a tight end instead of Austin Hooper, try and get like Hunter Long. You know what I mean? Like try and find a little bit like younger players so that they might eventually become something for you, because you're acquiring a lot of win now assets to trade away later, which is going to require you to keep making trades, which is fine, but it's going to be hard to do.
Yep, absolutely. And the final trade of the video, he sends away Kareem Hunt in exchange for a 2024 first. Easy, simple, and I think we both kind of agree in his spot. Go for the first. I like it.
Yeah, take the first for Hunt. You can't, like, if you net that one trade that he made where he got Higbee, Hunt, and a 2024 first instead of Kareem Hunt and the 2022 first, and that's for Mark Andrews and Alex Madison, and that's a great deal.
Yep, absolutely. So overall, any final moves that you would do with this team, or would you leave it be the one name in particular, or two names in particular? Chubb. That I was about to say Chubb and Ridley for me,
and Russ.
And Russ, yeah. So just
there's a couple. He's got a lot of work to do still, I would say. I think he's still got a lot of guys that he can trade away. It looks like in terms of like young pieces, he's still lacking in that department. So I'm still looking to acquire some young receivers, some young running backs, potentially, maybe not young running backs, but draft picks and maybe a young quarterback or two here and there.
Yep, absolutely agree. So we can move on to the next team, and that is going to be from Connor Dickey. So you can take it away with his team.
Yeah, Connor Dickey's got a number of questions here, and I thought these were kind of interesting because they weren't the typical, like, am I a rebuilder, am I a contender? He had, like, some very specific questions. So you guys can see his team on the screen. He also attached where he drafted them in the startup on there. So question 1, he says, I took Herbert over Lamar. I felt like Herbert is better with my team build. He also said he's scared about Lamar's play style and future injuries. Feel like Herbert is going to be a generational quarterback for years to come. So basically, he said opinion on that. What are your thoughts on taking Herbert over Lamar because of that Russian quarterback stigma? And I would say that a good friend of the show, Edwin Porras, wrote an article talking about Russian quarterbacks and why they're not actually as injury prone as people think they are. So that's the one thing I will say in Lamar's defense. But if you believe in Herbert a long term to be that like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen level fantasy quarterback, then I don't blame you for taking him over Lamar. And we do know that Herbert has a number of years left on his rookie contract where the team is going to be able to build around him and build him a contending team from a real life NFL perspective. So what are your thoughts on Herbert over Lamar? I wouldn't do it, but I understand the thought process.
Yeah, I personally would take Lamar here. I understand that maybe you're a little bit nervous about it, and maybe you think Herbert's going to be that top 5 quarterback for the next 10 years. Maybe the only person apart from like really Allen and Mahomes that could be set like that for a while. But I would just take Lamar again. He's going to have more short-term value. He's going to still be a young quarterback for you. He's 25 years old. And in general, from a competitive edge standpoint, he's just going to have such a safer path towards superstardom than Justin Herbert is in terms of fantasy. So I personally would have gone Lamar, but I do understand the rationale. Second, he does say with Akers out, what's the correct value for Henderson? He's a win now asset and doesn't fit his team build. What is his value? When is the right time to trade him to maximize his value? First part of that question, if I can get a first for him, like I'm doing that like yesterday. Second of all, the best part or when to trade him is going to be after those few weeks of the season when this Rams offense is rolling, Darrell Henderson's providing RB2 value, and somebody, say, loses a running back in the first few weeks. That's when you capitalize on Henderson. You could probably even get a first plus at that point.
Yeah, I would say that there's three selling windows for Henderson right now. One, we're in. It's right now, right? Like that's the first selling window. You could sell somebody right now on Henderson, the fact that he's going to be the workhorse before they sign somebody or before they trade for somebody. The second one is right when the season starts. If they haven't signed or traded for somebody, you could probably sell Henderson to somebody at that point, and they're going to have more value. He's going to have more value then than he will now because we already know that they didn't sign anybody at that point. And then the third one is like Danny said, like 3 weeks, 4 weeks into the season when we see him getting 15, 20 carries a game, then you could probably sell him to a team that lost, DeAndre Swift or something like that. And you could sell him for maybe a back end first at that point in time. So he also said, I think the deadline is basically the best time to sell him because we've seen Achilles injuries that are killer. And if he plays well, he can maybe have a value as lead back in that offense, even if Cam Akers comes back. So he's like, I think it'll be a committee regardless in 2022, but we will see. I kind of agree with you. I think they're probably not going to trust Cam Akers with a full workload come next season, even if they were willing to do it this year, because Achilles tears, I just don't think coaches are going to mess around with that and just be like, oh yeah, here you go, Cam Akers. Here's the 25 carries a game that we were going to give you last year.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I mean, again, like this is probably going to end up being a committee. I don't think Henderson's ever going to be a full-fledged workhorse back after this year. And I also don't think that Akers is going to ease into that role that he was expected to be before the injury. So I do agree with that assessment. But anyways, we can go on to the third question here. I know tight end may be a weakness, but I'm pretty sure Gesicki is a free agent next year and can land somewhere nice. Knox is a sleeper that has upside as he's going into his third season, and that's the breakout year for tight ends. I don't think any of the big three tight ends are an option for my team build, but I think guys I would trade for would be Pitts or Hawkinson. If I need to make a trade, what is an offer I can make? So looking at that, I think you picked both, like really both of those tight ends. I mean, Knox is a good value, I guess, at 19.5. I don't like the Gesicki pick at 8.11 there. I personally agree with you that he's not going to be great this year, but I don't necessarily see him being this high value free agent target for teams like needing a tight end.
Right. I don't even think he's as good of a free agent tight end as like Jonnu Smith was this year. Like Mike Gesicki's fine. Like he's okay, but I imagine he's going to get like an Austin Hooper contract and he's going to be like okay for fantasy after that. I personally would have at 8.11. I'm sure like you got Bateman at 9.9, which means you could have taken Gesicki, like you could have taken Bateman that early. So to pass on guys like Bateman and probably Elijah Moore and whoever else was in that kind of range of the draft, I personally wouldn't have taken Gesicki that early. So I definitely disagree with that pick. If you were to go after a Hawkinson or a Pitts definitely makes a lot of sense for what your team is currently at right now and what you're looking to do. If you wanted to float Gesicki in like a first round pick for Pitts and see if the Pitts owner will do it, maybe they're not really sure what exactly they have in Kyle Pitts, then I would definitely float offers for him. Pitts is a guy that I like trading for because I think people are underestimating how valuable he actually is.
Yep. No, absolutely. It just depends on what type of league you're in. Like, honestly, if you could pull off even Gesicki and two future ones, but then again, in the context of your team, you don't necessarily.
I don't hate floating CEH and try and get Pitts with him either because I personally don't believe in CEH long term, and I don't think CEH is going to be at peak value 2 to 3 years from now when you're ready to compete. I think his peak value is now. So if you wanted to sell CEH and try and get Pitts plus, you might even be able to get him to give you something on top of Pitts for CEH because it's the Chiefs running back, right? Like they might have that kind of stigma in their head. And I'd imagine they probably took CEH and Pitts around the same part of the startup draft. So that's something that I'd also be looking to do because you're probably not going to compete right away. Floating CEH is not a bad play in my opinion.
Yep, absolutely agree. And any other moves? So looking at the team, you can see it's a very young team at the top here. Herbert, Watson as the main quarterbacks for the future. CH, ETN, Williams, Henderson. And then you got the wide receivers and tight ends. So you mentioned that Pitts move. I absolutely agree. If you can float out like CH and maybe even get Pitts plus for him, I think that's a good move you had to make. And obviously the other main piece here that you'd want to move would be Henderson. But aside from that, I think you kind of know what you have to do and you have all the necessary capital to be able to do so.
Yeah, and unlike the previous guy that we talked about, I really like that you have a young wide receiver core, right? And you have a lot of like, maybe they're not elite pieces like Henry Ruggs and Paris Campbell and Nico Collins and Bryan Edwards. Like they're not elite pieces, but if one of those guys turns into a wide receiver too, then you got something, right? You can either keep them, you can trade them, whatever the case is. That's what you want to do if you're a rebuilding team. You want to, if you're going to get young pieces, make sure that they have some upside and not necessarily just grab a bunch of veterans that you have to trade at some point.
Yep, absolutely agree. So we can head on to the next team, and that's going to be from Wesley Fox. So you guys can see on the screen, 10-team, half PPR, 1 quarterback league. Corey, you could take it away with the team.
Yeah, so he's got Mahomes as his main quarterback and a 1 QB. He's got Travis Etienne, Damian Harris, Leonard Fournette, A.J. Dillon as his top running backs, DJ Chark, Jamar Chase, Henry Ruggs, McCole Hardman as his top wide receivers. He also got Rondell Moore and Kadarius Toney a bit further down the list. He's got Pitts as his main tight end. He has 2 ones in 2022 and 5 ones in 2023. So some good draft capital there. He goes next. What's like my next moves? Players that I should be looking to trade or target in a trade during a rebuild. And he's like, rank my rebuild, basically looking to be done after that 2023 draft where he has 5 first round picks. So I would say overall, when you look at your rebuild, the best way to rank your rebuild is who are your cornerstone pieces. And clearly you have Patrick Mahomes. Even though it's a 1 quarterback league, he still has a lot of value. Travis Etienne is definitely a cornerstone piece for you. Jamar Chase is definitely a cornerstone piece for you, and Kyle Pitts is a cornerstone piece for you.
Is that Najee Harris or Damian Harris?
It's Damian Harris. He specified that it was Damian Harris with me. So, yeah, and again, you have some young pieces that could develop into some things. You got A.J. Dillon and Henry Ruggs and Cole Hardman, Gabe Davis. Some of these guys could develop into something, but those are your main 4 cornerstone pieces. So I'd be looking to just see what you got in terms of your young talent this year. Maybe Ruggs and Hardman turn into something, and then suddenly you got a bit of a deeper wide receiver core for the future. But overall, I'm just looking to acquire more draft capital. And once you get to that 2023 class, you should know, once I spend these draft picks or trade these draft picks, whatever you do with them, am I going to be in a position to compete right away? Because there's a good chance that you get to that 2023 class and you have 6 or 7 cornerstone pieces now, and you can trade 2 of those draft picks for more cornerstone pieces and spend 3 more of them and get yourself a Bijan Robinson or Kayshon Boutte or something like that. And then suddenly you have a very, scary team that's all kind of approaching their prime at the same time.
Yep, I absolutely agree. So we can head on to the next team. That's going to be from Juhri-HRO. So you can give him a little shout out right here because we're getting it from Germany.
Yeah, and it's the second German guy that's asked for his questions on Dynasty decisions. I know I can't pronounce the guy's name, that the first German guy, because it's a bunch of letters and numbers, but he knows who he is. He comments on all of our videos, so we appreciate him as well. But he said, Jury says this is a international league. So I guess there's some people from England, some people from Germany in it. So that's kind of interesting. I have no idea what the football dynamic is in Europe. I'm sure it's probably kind of similar to what it is for us in Canada here. There's, sparingly football fans, but the ones who are football fans are diehards. Anyway, this is his team. You guys can see it on the screen. It's a 12-team Dynasty PPR. It is a 1 quarterback league, and there's some IDP spots as well. We're not going to worry about that too much. Although I will say that Derwin James and Isaiah Simmons are probably pretty good pieces to have in a Dynasty IDP format. Justin Herbert, Miles Sanders, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, J.K. Dobbins, most notably in the backfield there. And then he's got Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Laviska Shenault, Will Fuller at wide receiver, and then he's got Jonnu Smith, Cole Kmet at tight end. So he's basically asking, he has the 101, the 104, and the 205 in his rookie draft. And he wants Kyle Pitts at 101. And when you look at his team, he's got Jonnu Smith and Cole Kmet as his tight end. So okay there, but he could definitely use Kyle Pitts still. He thinks that 102 is going to be where Kyle Pitts goes if he doesn't select him, because 102 is a big Falcons fan. So he's assuming that they want Kyle Pitts, as being that he's on the Atlanta Falcons. So at 101, are you okay in a 1 quarterback league pulling the trigger on Kyle Pitts?
Absolutely. He's in that top tier. You need a tight end. Do it. Pull the trigger.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So if he does do that, and we would highly recommend that you do, because, you got a young team, you can definitely compete, but you still have a young team for the future. So you take Kyle Pitts at 101. He's your solidified tight end now. What do you do at 104? And my answer is pretty much the same all the time. Is I usually take Travis Etienne at 104, because I'm assuming that Najee Harris and Chase are the other 2 picks at the top of the draft. So to me, the top 4 guys are all in one tier. So whoever is there at 104 is who I would pick, whether it's Chase, whether it's Najee Harris, or whether it's Travis Etienne. In the order that I would pick them, because you're picking Pitts 1, if Harris is there, I would pick him, then Chase, then Etienne. That is the way I would pick them. So that's basically what I would do. I know you have some, good running backs on your team, but I have some question marks about two of your running backs, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Miles Sanders. So if you wanted to take ETN or Harris, whoever's there, and shop one of those guys, I definitely wouldn't blame you for doing that.
Yep. No, I absolutely agree with that. And in terms of the 205, again, you just kind of look for best player available. Maybe a Terrace Marshall falls, De'Ami Brown. You're in a good spot there. So overall, you're in a good position. Have fun with that international draft. That's a very cool circumstance to hear about. But any closing thoughts on his team, or can we move on?
No, we can move on.
All right, so we got JHeebs next, and you guys can see the team on the screen, but it's got Lamar Jackson, Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield, Zach Wilson in particular quarterback, running backs, Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, etc. Wide receivers, Devontae Adams, Michael Thomas, Cooper Kupp, Julio Jones, Robbie Anderson, etc. Tight ends, Darren Waller and Logan Thomas, and then you guys can see his picks, but he doesn't have his 2021 or 2022 first or his 2023 first. So overall, his questions, it's a 10-team Superflex PPR Dynasty. Can he win with his team? That's the number one question. What are your first initial glance on this if he can win?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty clear that you can win with this team. You have a lot of guys that are in their prime, like Eckler, like Aaron Jones, like Lamar Jackson, like Devontae Adams, like Michael Thomas, unfortunately for the news today, but Julio Jones, Darren Waller, like all these guys are in their prime. So what I would be looking to do is trying to win right away. If you can somehow find a way to acquire 2024 picks, and this is something that I don't really hear people talk about a lot, but when you're in win now mode, acquiring first rounders once your winning window is up is something that I think is very underrated. So if your league allows you, and it probably does because you listed the picks, to trade for 2024 picks, if you wanted to flip one of your wide receivers, because you have a very deep wide receiver core, if you wanted to try and flip one for a 2024 first, so that by the time your winning window is over, you have 2 or 3 2024 first to reload your team. That's something that I don't hear a lot of people talk about, and I think is a really good plan if you are trying to win now.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And that would be a really good thing to increase your longevity. Speaking though, he does say what can I do with my longevity and not having many draft picks? What are the main names here that you would move off of maybe to increase your longevity here?
I would maybe try and get younger at wide receiver. That's something that I'm looking at probably because with Michael Thomas, and again, this is going to be harder now that he's injured, but if you were able to be trading a Michael Thomas for a Brandon Ayuk and recouping a second-round pick or something on top of that, or maybe even a first-round pick, then I would definitely make a move like that. I would try and get younger at wide receiver if you can, but Julio Jones is probably not the guy that I would try and get younger with because he seems to usually have the best value to whoever's team is on who has Julio Jones. And because you're a competitor, I'm not necessarily forcing anything, especially this year. If you wanted to move Julio Jones this time next year because you already won the championship or whatever the case is, maybe you determine that you can't win the championship with this team, then I'd be looking to get younger. But overall, I think you're best off just trying to go for it. I think that's probably your best move.
Yeah, that's fair. And now he also has a few trades listed here. So he dealt away. He gave up Josh Jacobs and in return got Corey Davis, Zach Wilson, and a second-round pick. Absolutely well done here. I mean, I would take Zach Wilson pretty much straight up over Josh Jacobs. So the fact that you got a pick and Corey Davis out of it, I like it.
Yeah, they're probably around the same level of startup value for me. But overall, I think you definitely win that trade because Zach Wilson as a quarterback definitely has more value than a running back who I have long-term questions about.
Yep, agreed. Next trade, he ended up trading Paris Campbell, Gabe Davis, a third, 2 4s, and a 5 for Julio Jones. Yeah, easy money deal.
Yeah, late round picks, the 4s and the 5s. Who you're trading away Chris Evans in those trades. I don't care about those picks. And Paris Campbell and Gabe Davis are 2 guys that have hype, but probably shouldn't have hype because they really haven't done anything yet. So the fact that you're getting a solidified, top 15 wide receiver for at least this year, probably next year too. That's worth it if you can win a championship with Julio Jones as a flex option for you or something.
Yep. Next move, aged kind of like sour milk at this point, considering the fact that MT got hurt, but ended up acquiring MT, Jordan Love, and a 2024 first in exchange for A-Rob, Irv Smith, and 2023 first. Now, looking at the time that you made this deal, let's just say it from there. I would like your side of the deal because I do think that MT should have been a very good upgrade over even A-Rob this year. Problem now, though, is MT's hurt, unfortunately, and you probably lost this deal in hindsight.
Yeah. And I like I said, if the fact that you got a 2024 first, I think is pretty decent. I don't really know why I guess they're probably, the person you made this trade with is probably looking to acquire 2023 first because they've heard The class is very good. So that's probably why they were looking to make this deal. And that's probably pretty fair for them. But I do like, I'm assuming you recouped your 2024 first, because it looks like you only have one first in 2024. So unless you move this one after, then that's probably
ended up moving it after.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the next deal we got here ended up acquiring Tyler Boyd and Kareem Hunt in exchange for Jamison Crowder, Corey Davis, a 2022 2 and 2 3s. So if I'm looking at this deal, Corey Davis and Tyler Boyd probably about cancel each other out. I mean, they're similar wide receivers, 3-4 types in fantasy this year. So it's basically Hunt for Crowder, a 2 and 2 3s. And given your situation as a contender, I do like the move in acquiring Hunt. Sorry.
Yeah, and it's tough to give up that kind of draft capital, because even though they are 2s and 3s, they do have some kind of value to them. So that's a little bit, it makes me a little bit nervous, because, now you're in a situation where you don't have a lot of draft capital. But Kareem Hunt's a guy that should have, RB2, back end RB2 value this year. And of course, we know if anything happens to Chubb, he has more value than that. So for a contending team, Kareem Hunt should be a guy that has pretty high value for at least the next 2 years. And who knows, maybe he goes on to a third contract with another team once he moves on from Cleveland.
Yep. No, I fully agree there. And the next deal, so you mentioned the 2024 first that he acquired. They ended up giving it back up. He got in return, so he received Darren Waller and Austin Eckler. And in return, he gave up Kareem Hunt, Robert Tonyan, Jalen Waddle, a 2024 1 and a 2024 2. So if you're talking about this deal from a face value standpoint, Austin Eckler is at minimum worth probably, we'll say for ease sake.
I would say he's worth Hunt in both the picks.
I was about to say that. Yeah, probably Hunt in the first, probably going to say, but if you want to put the 2 in there as well, yeah, that's probably fair value. So Hunt in the picks for Eckler, and basically just Tonyan and Waddle for Waller.
Yeah, I think you got you clearly got the 2 best assets in the deal. You're a win now team. You got he's a 27-year-old running back, 26-year-old running back, but he's going to be a borderline RB1 for the next 2-3 years, however long he plays in the NFL. And because he's a pass catching running back, I'd imagine he's not going to have some kind of steep drop off as if he was an early down banger type. And then, of course, Darren Waller is one of the best tight ends in fantasy. So I like that deal for you.
Yep. And finally, David Montgomery, he got in exchange for Melvin Gordon in 2022 first. You're assuming that pick's probably going to be 110 to 112, given the state of your team. I don't mind making that type of move.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all. Melvin Gordon, to me, doesn't really have that much value in general. So he's kind of just a throw-in in this deal. In the 2022 first, yeah, it kind of sucks giving it up. It's really it seems like a very difficult thing to give up a first rounder for David Montgomery, but in hindsight, it's probably the right move to make, because Montgomery's production, his volume is actually worth that amount of draft capital. And when you look at that tier of running backs, Sanders, Jacobs, Montgomery, those guys, Montgomery is the one that is the coaching staff and the front office is behind right now, right? Because with Jacobs, they're signing Kenyon Drake. They're getting rid of his offensive line. With Sanders, they're drafting Gainwell, bringing in KJ, and bringing back Jordan Howard. At least with Montgomery, we're hearing things like he's going to get 20 carries a game, and we want him to be the workhorse running back. So Montgomery's a little bit gross to go out and acquire for a first-round pick, but I definitely like the move for contenders.
Yep, absolutely agree. So we can head on to the next team in the video, and that's going to be from Ian Steele yet again. And he basically just wants us to compare his 2 dynasty teams and which one we like better long-term. So what are your initial thoughts from looking at both these teams?
Yeah, and if you guys remember Ian Steele from last week, he was the one who basically ran roughshod on his league on every trade that he made. So that first New Age Outlaws team that you guys can see on the bottom is the one that we analyzed, all the trades that he did. And you can see his team is stacked, right? He's got like Rodgers, Herbert, Trey Lance, Saquon, Dalvin Cook, Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Hopkins, DK Metcalf, like Darren Waller. Like his team's phenomenal, right? I actually think the top team is the better team, though, and has more long-term appeal, in my opinion, too.
Okay, if we're talking about which team's better this year, I think it's the bottom team, simply because the only thing I have to look at is Darren Waller versus Hunter Henry at the tight end position.
Right, but look at the wide receiver core of the top team.
Oh,
Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Calvin Ridley, DK Metcalf, Keenan Allen, Chris Godwin, T. Higgins. Need I say anything else?
At the end of the day here,
Zeke Elliott is his RB5 on that team.
Yeah, that team's actually probably better. To be honest, both these teams are fucking.
Yeah, they're like the answer is both of these teams are phenomenal. But he said basically of these 2 rosters, which do you think has the best chance to win in the next 2 to 3 years?
Oh,
the answer is they both have a good chance to win in the next 2 to 3 years. He said he won the championship in the bottom roster and he was the runner-up in the top roster. I don't know how the hell you lost with the top roster, but either way, I know you didn't necessarily ask for like moves to make, but go get yourself an elite tight end with that top roster, because you could, you could ship Tyreek Hill for Kyle Pitts right now. It doesn't even make a dent in your wide receiver core.
Yeah, literally though. And like for more realistic value, you can basically put that into Ridley for Pitts. Honestly, like that's probably about the comparative value. And if you got a
Metcalf for Pitts right now,
Metcalf for Pitts, yeah, like
you have so many options with that team. But go get yourself a solidified tight end, because that's really the only thing missing from your starting roster.
Hey, I'll be completely honest. When I took first glance at the team, I didn't even like look at like the depth of both these teams. I just assumed, okay, the top team's probably got average depth. The bottom team, if you're comparing top options, Barkley, Cook, Metcalf, Hopkins versus like Cook, Chubb, Devontae Adams, Hill, and then you got the tight end. But then I saw the fact that, you got Mixon, Elliott, Metcalf, Allen, Godwin, Higgins. Like, what the hell was going on? This is going into your second year. Is it like you and one other person drafting and then like a bunch of expansion teams joined? Like, what
I have no
here?
idea. He said it's they're both 10-team leagues, so teams are going to be relatively good, but I don't think anybody's team is as good as yours. So he's like, which one is most likely to win multiple championships? The answer is both of them, but the top one I would say is probably most likely to win multiple championships. Just go out and get yourself an elite tight end, maybe Darren Waller, maybe George Kittle, maybe Travis Kelce, or you go get a young guy like Pitts. Which do you think will I need to rebuild first? I mean, I can't see into the future, dude. Like, I don't think you're going to need to rebuild either of these teams anytime soon. The only thing I will say about the bottom team is that you have Aaron Rodgers, you have Dalvin Cook. So like those two assets are going to decline relatively soon. But like, even then, like you're still in such good position that it doesn't really matter. And again, with the top team, you have some older running backs like Mixon and Elliott, but you have Dobbins, you still have Chubb, who's still pretty young, and then your wide receiver core is loaded. So I would say the first team is the one you need to rebuild faster, because it looks like everybody's in their prime already, but it's by no means a old team or anything.
What are we talking about, rebuilding in 2030?
Yeah, like 2024, 2025, maybe you got to rebuild one of these teams. But I trust your trading ability to be able to do that pretty successfully based on the last video. So he did say he sent in a trade that he made in the top team. So how he acquired Tyreek Hill on that team. And again, Tyreek Hill is like the third best receiver on his team. That's how good the team is. So he got Tyreek Hill in
one quarterback league
first and Bryan Edwards. And what he gave away was DJ Moore, Damian Harris, Trevor Lawrence, and 2 second-round picks in 2023. And this is a one quarterback format. So Trevor Lawrence, obviously not quite as valuable as he would be in a super flex format. But again, you don't need DJ Moore on your team. You don't need Damian Harris on your team. So to me, that doesn't even really matter in this deal. I know they're like pretty good assets, especially DJ Moore. They're pretty good assets, but the fact that you can get a superstar wide receiver and a first-round pick on top of it when you really didn't need those guys, I don't hate it at all.
You got 2 of the top 3 assets in this deal if you're looking at it. Tyreek Hill's the top asset. I would say DJ Moore's probably second, and then I would take the 2023 first.
And then I think Lawrence is probably close. Even in a one quarterback format, he still has pretty decent amount of value because he is, a rookie quarterback. That's the generational prospect he is. But it's definitely in favor of you, especially given the composition of your team. So I think you're in. I don't even really think you need our help, Ian. Like I don't even know why you're asking us questions. Yeah,
for sure. So anyways, we'll move on to the next team, and that's going to be from Brandon K. Also, the fact that he has that team and draft capital just makes no fucking sense.
I have no idea. I have no idea how.
We'll go on to Brandon K's, though, and basically this is a Dynasty League 10-team half PPR league. 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 2 tight ends, and 2 flex spots. So you guys can see the team. Quarterbacks, he's basically got Patrick Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance in particular. I don't know why Trevor Lawrence and Trey Lance are listed below Newton and Hill, but whatever. Running backs, you got, let me actually search through. Nobody, it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
nobody of note. Wide receivers, you definitely got some guys of note there, though. You got AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Jerry Jeudy. That'll do definitely for your situation. Then you got Kelce at tight end and some young guys, Dallas Goedert and Adam Troutman. Overall, when you look at his draft capital too, he's got 2 1s in 2022, but it doesn't look like he has his 1 in 2023. But he has a lot of mid-round draft capital, 2 2s in 2022, and a lot of. He shows the rest of his picks, which looks like he has everything there. So I'll let you go through the rest of it.
Yeah. So let's go over his rookie draft real quick, because it's a 2 quarterback league, and you got fucking Trevor Lawrence at the 103 and Trey Lance at the 109. What?
Yeah, that's absurd. That's a lot like the other guy's team that we were talking about. It's your league clearly doesn't know how valuable quarterbacks are, especially in the format that you're in, which makes sense why you have Trevor Lawrence, Patrick Mahomes, and Trey Lance on your team. I honestly, like, you're set at quarterback, especially with those guys, because they have just such high ceilings, especially Mahomes in that situation. So you're great at quarterback. At Jamar Chase at 104 is a fine pick. I'm assuming like Najee Harris and ETN or Najee Harris and Pitts went at like 101, 102. So getting Chase at 104 makes a lot of sense there. And then as Danny said, Lance at 109, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown at the 303. I think that's pretty good value. Elijah Mitchell at the 304. Don't hate that. De'Ami Brown at the 403 is great value there. I don't know how the hell he fell that far. Chris Evans, Kylan Hill, sure.
Yeah, he basically got Chris Evans in exchange for Jerick McKinnon trade up. So yeah, I really like that.
Yep.
The other trade basically gave up Kirk Cousins for Elijah Mitchell and a future second. Yeah, that's probably a decently fair value considering the fact that your league as a whole undervalues quarterbacks in general.
Yeah, I mean, I would still say I would probably need a bit more for Kirk Cousins, but given your situation, given what your league is valuing quarterbacks at, it probably makes relative sense in that from that perspective.
Yep. Offseason trades, he traded Deshaun Watson away for Cam Newton, the 104 and a future first. Jamar Chase and a first round pick for Deshaun Watson. I think that's pretty fair value.
Yeah, that's pretty fair value. I think I might have held on to Deshaun Watson in that situation, though.
He got Trey Lance in exchange for the 213, which he got Rashad Bateman.
Holy crap. How the hell did he get Bateman that low?
And a future 2023 first round pick. So if we're looking at a face value, Bateman and a first for Trey Lance, that's probably about fair. I'd probably slightly lean Lance there because the quarterback value, but I understand the side with Bateman there.
Yeah, it looks like he did make this deal. He's the one who acquired Lance because he's on his team.
Yeah.
So I would say the Lance side probably wins this.
Yeah.
But the fact that guy got Bateman at 213 is
no
complete
sense.
lock. Like that, if it wasn't Bateman that he got with that pick, this is easily you win this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what would you trade to improve my RB core? Just wait with this team. You got such a young team. Who cares if you don't compete in 2021? Listen, once you figure out that RB core, this team is going to take you places. So I would wait until 2022 since you do have those 2 first round picks. How does my team look? 2022 contender. Yeah, this is the definition of a 2022 contender, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree.
Should I trade Kelsey? Would you go after Cam Akers for next year? First question, Kelsey. Yes, I would absolutely trade Kelsey. He doesn't fit your team at all. If you can get even Travis Kelsey, and
here's the one thing that I would really like to do if I was you is I would try and go and get DeAndre Swift. If you can use Kelsey to try and get DeAndre Swift or Javonte Williams potentially too, that would make a lot of sense. I'm not sure if somebody's going to give you I doubt somebody gives you DeAndre Swift or Javonte straight up for Kelsey. You'd probably have to give them something else in return. But if you could would you trade Kelsey and Judy for DeAndre Swift?
Yes.
Yeah, I would too. So if you could pull off something like that, I think that would make a lot of sense for your team. And then that way you have one solidified young stud running back that by 2022 should be going into his prime, hopefully with an exciting young quarterback on the Lions as well.
Yep. And the second part of this, should I go after Cam Akers for next year? If you can get him for cheap, maybe. Like if you can get him for, I don't know, like
if you can trade, and this is a general rule, if anybody can get Cam Akers for a second round pick, I'm willing to make the trade.
Yeah, I was about to say maybe even like a 2022 2 and 3. Like I don't care at that point.
If second round value is what it takes for you guys to get Cam Akers, then I'm okay going out and acquiring him, but I would not trade a first round pick for Cam Akers at this point in time.
I absolutely agree there. Who would you cut? I have 31 on my roster, 25 is the max. So you can cut 6 guys looking straight at it. Kylan Hill, Brandon Allen, Joe Flacco are 3. Like, see you later. I don't give a fuck about.
Donald Parham too.
Yeah, that's 4. Looking
got
at the
2
roster.
more. I would say Malcolm Brown can probably go as well.
Malcolm Brown and Mike Boone probably.
Yeah, that's probably who I would get rid of as well.
Yep. Elijah Moore fell to 301. I was close to trading.
Oh, you should have traded up, dude.
Trade partners connection was spotty, and he had to auto pick.
Oh, that's brutal. Yeah, Elijah Moore at the 301. Like, I'm really confused. Like, who was going in the first 2 rounds? If Bateman was available at 213 and Elijah Moore was available at the 301. So, like, I'm really confused. Like, was Chuba Hubbard going in like the second round of this draft? Like, how the hell did these elite like prospect wide receivers fall this far? Like, I'm really confused about that. So overall though, you're in good shape. You got a pretty good rebuild on your shoulders, and it looks like you got, you're set up for 2022, 2023.
Yep, absolutely agree. And the final team of the video, we're going to get into Bryan Harris, a 10-team PPR Superflex. You can take it away with this one, Bush.
Yeah, so he said he drafted in April, and it was like right before the actual NFL draft. So he kind of got screwed by the fact that he drafted James Robinson, obviously, and then they took ETN in the first round. And he also drafted Aaron Rodgers prior to this whole like Aaron Rodgers situation that we're dealing with now. So should he ride with his team basically, or should he look to make some moves either to position himself for further contention or for a rebuild or reload? So what are your thoughts on the team overall? He's got Rodgers, Stafford, Winston, Mac Jones, Cook, Dobbins, James Robinson, Kenny Golladay, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Boyd, DJ Chark, and then he also has Kittle and Pitts. He has both of those guys, which is interesting, and he has all of his picks in both of the next two drafts.
Number one thing I would say, like if you can get a good amount of Kittle,
Kittle's gone. That's very easy question for me. I would easily get rid of Kittle because like Pitts is going to be like, I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Kittle this year. He probably won't be, but I legitimately think it's going to be closer than people think between Kittle and Pitts in terms of fantasy scoring this year. So if you can get, first round value for George Kittle, maybe you can get a running back like, Javonte Williams or something back for Kittle, or you can get a young quarterback for Kittle. I think that's probably a good spot to be in because you are pretty weak at quarterback, I would say, especially when it comes to age, because you do have Mac Jones, but Stafford and Rodgers, they're a bit older as quarterbacks. So if you could somehow turn Kittle into, I don't know, like Joe Burrow or something like that, I think that'd probably be a well-advised move.
Yep. No, I agree with that. If you can get that type of value for Kittle, that's something I'd look to move. In terms of the other piece on your roster, like nothing really like hammers out to me. I mean, you do have Boyd twice, which is a pretty big plus. So I'll give you that. But aside from that, like, I don't know. This is a team that I would want to retool though, because I don't necessarily think you're in place right now. Cook would be a name I would look to sell personally. Just because like, again, people might be willing to give you like legitimately like Jonathan Taylor plus or Antonio Gibson plus. And at that point, yes, I'm going to take the younger back plus the pick in exchange for Cook there. I would say Dobbins too, but you have him on your roster, thankfully. It's a team that I would want to try to align the ranges or the ages a little bit more. And you got Dobbins, you got Chark, you got younger pieces here, Pitts, Mac Jones. I would try to just get younger overall because I don't think this team is ready to compete just this year.
Yeah, the sketchy thing about this team is that you have a couple guys that are like prime fantasy assets and then a couple guys that are like young fantasy assets like Pitts. So it's really kind of sketchy going into the season with two 35 plus year old quarterbacks and a running back that's 27 years old. And then you have a 22-year-old tight end. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I agree. I would look to shop Cook and Kittle for sure. Rodgers, maybe once his situation clears up, you can look to get rid of him as well. Because I think even if everything broke right, like even if Rodgers comes back to the Packers, it would still probably be hard to compete with this team because the wide receiver core isn't the strongest thing in the world. And you only have two, startable running backs week in and week out.
Yep, I absolutely agree. So with that being said, video's over, boys. Sorry, we went over all the teams. I hope you guys made it this far and enjoyed. If you did make it this far, make sure to use our code over on Underdog Fantasy if you guys are interested in their best ball site. All you have to do, deposit $10, you get a $25 batch back. And if you guys are new to best ball, as always, you can get the experience of drafting, getting your favorite players, seeing them throughout the year. Only you don't have to have any maintenance whatsoever during the season.
Yeah, and that $10 that you deposit, you get $25 on top of it, and you can win money with that $10, and you get both of our draft guides for using our code for free. So $10, $25 on top of it, which you can win money with, and you get 2 draft guides for free. Dynasty and redraft if you want access to our redraft rankings, our Dynasty rankings, our top sleepers and busts and league winners for redraft, then you can get all of that at thefantasystockexchange.com. And again, use our promo code FSC on Underdog Fantasy at first sign up and deposit, and you get all of that. So peace out, guys, and enjoy your Saturday.